Rudo runs over to Gris and apologizes for breaking his amulet. Gris admits that it was very important to him, but feels glad that it helped Rudo. He praises Rudo for doing a good job. Meanwhile, Rudo sits alone outside the cleaner's headquarters. Enjin joins him and comments on the long face he has. He praises Rudo for being able to use his vital instrument properly, but Rudo interrupts and questions what kind of face he is supposed to have after Gris got injured. He feels guilty for not being able to help the person who helped him and laments that the same things keep happening even though he has made progress. Enjin tells Rudo that Gris was prepared to risk his life to protect his comrades, and that he protected Rudo because he sees him as a comrade, not just a Skyperson. Enjin gets up and tells Rudo to show his face to Gris. They head inside, and Rudo is stunned to see Gris sitting and looking completely fine. Gris congratulates Rudo on awakening his power. Rudo stares in disbelief and feels surprised that Gris is alive. Enjin and another giver console Rudo after realizing how depressed he had been. Rudo becomes agitated and explains that he was confused since they said Gris was deeply wounded, so he thought he had died. Gris thanks the medical team for his recovery and introduces Ishia Stilza, who is the only healer giver in the cleaners. Ishia quietly mentions that she just happened to be of help, and Enjin tells Rudo that Ishia is a very shy person. Gris then speaks to Follow and advises him that he cannot be a giver if he is too impatient. He encourages Follow to take things at his own pace, and Follow starts crying while holding Gris tightly. Gris praises Rudo and Zanka again for doing a great job cornering such a strong opponent. Rudo feels relieved and glad that Gris is still alive. Enjin reveals that they now have to worry about both trash beasts and the raiders since they have started an all-out fight with the cleaners. Enjin begins to share some new information, and suddenly another giver walks in. The giver talks about the border that the raiders mentioned and explains that it means the raiders are investigating the sphere as well. Rudo looks at the giver and wonders who he is, as Enjin calls him boss. Rudo realizes that the man is the boss of the cleaners. The man introduces himself as Arca Corvus, the head of the cleaners. He recalls hearing that Rudo wants to find a way back to the sphere. He initially thought Rudo was only there for information and states that he does not want people like that in the cleaners. But after seeing Rudo risk his life to protect his comrades and noticing his useful ability, he officially welcomes Rudo into the cleaners. Later, they head to the boss's office, and Corvus explains that the border is what lies between the sphere and the ground. He reveals that anyone who tries to cross the border to reach the sphere ends up dying. The boss shares a story about a woman in the no man's land who is said to be the closest to the border. He explains that the woman once helped a traveler who ended up in the no man's land, and when asked why she was there, she responded that she sees people coming down from above. She had lived there for years and claimed that there is someone who can go up and down without dying. Corvus speculates that the woman may have seen a person capable of crossing the border. Rudo understands that finding the woman could help him discover a way back to the sphere. Corvus becomes interested in learning how Rudo survived and warns him that following this path will be extremely dangerous. Rudo firmly declares that there is no doubt he is going back to the sphere. Enjin walks into the office and notices Rudo wearing a cleaner's uniform. He comments that the uniform is looking good on him. Meanwhile, Zanka starts shaking nervously after noticing something pushing its way through a door. The scene jumps back to 6 hours earlier, where Follow pleads with Rudo to stop him for trying to find the woman in the no man's land. Rudo remains firm and refuses to stop until he finds the woman who might know how to return to the sphere. Enjin quickly shuts down Rudo's argument and questions if he has a death wish for wanting to go to such a dangerous place without being prepared or understanding the limits of his own power. Enjin insists on learning all the details about Rudo's abilities and urges him to be aware of the weaknesses of his power. Rudo asks if Enjin will come with him, and Enjin responds that it would be suicide to go into the no man's land alone. He explains that the cleaners are not only tasked with destroying trash beasts, but also collecting information about them. Enjin warns that they also need to keep an eye out for the raiders. This prompts Rudo to ask how raiders can become givers. Enjin explains that even bad people like raiders have something that means a lot to them, and becoming a giver has nothing to do with whether a person is good or bad. He adds that people often look down on givers because people see it as creepy when givers are so obsessed with a single object. Rudo reflects on what Enjin said and realizes he was unfair for assuming bad people wouldn't take care of their things. Despite this, Rudo still wants to make the raiders pay for their mistakes. Enjin advises him to chill out for the day. Rudo lies down in his room trying to chill, but keeps thinking about wanting to go trash picking. Suddenly, Riyo slams his door open and startles him. She offers to show him around the cleaner's headquarters and quickly flies through the tour, showing him the training room, dining hall, and bathroom. Rudo is shocked to see so many things he never had on the sphere. Riyo wonders what life was like on the sphere, and Rudo informs that he would go with Recto to see scenery. Finally, find trash and get bullied. Riyo starts laughing and reassures him that there are bullies down here as well. She asks if he ever had desserts before, and Rudo responds that only rich people could afford them. Riyo reveals that they have desserts bought from the vianders on the ground. In the cafeteria, Enjin sits nearby and asks if they came just to eat desserts. He warns that the desserts are more addictive than drugs on the ground. Rudo is stunned by the amount of desserts presented to him. Enjin explains that pollution makes it hard to grow plants, but the vianders have givers specialized in preparing food. Rudo takes a bite of one of the desserts and screams in surprise at how good it tastes. He keeps munching on all the desserts when someone suddenly approaches their table. Another giver with a pacifier stares intensely at Rudo. Rudo assumes the person wants some of the desserts and reluctantly offers a candy. The giver snatches it and puts his hand out, expecting more. This angers Rudo, and someone quickly pulls the giver away. The scene shifts back to the present, where Zanka overhears both Enjin and Riyo talking about how Rudo emptied their stock of desserts. Zanka wonders if Rudo caused trouble again, and suddenly he starts shaking nervously after seeing something bursting through the doorway. Rudo pops out of the door looking very bloated. Zanka gets startled and yells that there's a weird outsider inside their headquarters. Meanwhile, Rudo tries to use his vital instrument power on a knife, but fails to activate it. Zanka wonders if Rudo can no longer use his vital instrument. Enjin teases Rudo by saying he became too obsessed with desserts and forgot how to use his powers. Rudo gets confused on why his powers are not working, even though he still remembers how to use them. Zanka thinks for a moment and theorizes that Rudo's ability might only react to trash or broken objects. They bring a pile of random broken items, and Zanka tells Rudo to pick something from the pile. Rudo excitedly goes through the trash and picks up a triangle-shaped frame. He quickly activates his ability, and the frame turns into a weapon. Enjin praises Zanka for figuring out Rudo's abilities and comments that he always knew Zanka was a good trainer. Zanka gets flustered hearing Enjin's praise, but tries to hide his happiness. Zanka advises Rudo to practice weaponizing multiple items in a row. Rudo uses his powers on several objects, but suddenly gets a nosebleed. Enjin recalls the last time Rudo had a nosebleed after using several instruments in a row. He explains that while the quality of Rudo's gloves is great, Rudo's body cannot keep up with his powers. He informs that if more time is spent treating an item with care, it will become a better vital instrument with improved quality. Zanka wonders why Rudo's gloves are affecting his body so much and suspects it might have something to do with the series on his gloves. Rudo asks why the weaponized items fall apart after being used, and Riyo guesses that it happens because the items no longer have any regrets. She adds that the items starts crumbling after they fulfilled their role. Zanka confirms this theory, since the items fall apart after Rudo feels safe. Enjin concludes that Rudo's ability might draw out the full worth of trash and broken objects to fulfill their purpose. He reassures Rudo by saying that he didn't destroy Griss's lucky charm, but instead used the remaining fight left in it. Rudo understands that his ability is not about destroying things, but about helping them fulfill their purpose. Riyo asks Rudo about the series connected to his gloves. Rudo wonders if this means there are more series out there. Riyo follows up by asking if Rudo has given his gloves a name, and Rudo admits that he hasn't thought about naming them yet. Meanwhile, Jabber reaches his hideout and meets with his boss. He mentions several phrases like the City of Arts and Desert Altar, along with Rudo. Meanwhile, Rudo washes his gloves in the sink and feels a stinging sensation in his hands. He heads to his room and becomes shocked to find Riyo lying on his bed. She wonders why Rudo is still awake and reminds him that they will be leaving tomorrow. Rudo stands stunned and questions why she is in his room and how she got there. Riyo casually reveals that her room is just above his and she came through the window. Rudo panics at the thought of a girl on his bed, and Riyo notices Rudo's hands. She asks if his hands are hurting, and Rudo explains that they don't hurt when the gloves are on, but he has to wash them sometimes. Riyo observes that his hands don't look like burns, and Rudo remarks that he would have to ask his dad to find out more about his hands. Riyo sits up and comments that parents give us both good and bad things. Meanwhile, Enjin and Griss stand outside a room as loud clanging sounds come from inside. Enjin explains to Rudo that givers must wear full-face preparations when heading to the no man's land. He reveals that they have an artiste who makes the masks, but often procrastinates when given a deadline and ends up getting nothing done. Corvus decides to get some magic charms for Rudo. Semiyu explains that the no man's land is unpredictable, and it is common to get killed by trash beasts. She adds that they will use a certain giver to cast a spell that can draw on their powers. Rudo asks where they are going, and Enjin responds that their destination is the city of Graffiti, also known as Canvas Town. Enjin introduces Rudo to the team of givers who will assist him in the search for the Lady of the No Man's Land. From the Akuta group, there is Zanka, Riyo, and Enjin. From the Eager group, there is Delmon and Tamsi. And also supporters including Gris, Follow, and Tome are also part of the team. Enjin explains that they usually have 5 supporters, but since they are traveling to the no man's land, they are bringing fewer supporters and more givers. Delmon calls out to Rudo and acknowledges the pain he has gone through. He vows not to forgive those who harm his comrades and reveals that he admires people who are passionate. He asks if Rudo is interested in joining the Eager group. Tamsi steps in to stop Delmon and explains that Rudo belongs to the Akuta group since Enjin brought him in. He also tells Rudo that he likes passionate people too. Suddenly, Delmon shouts that they are heading to Canvas Town and delivers an intense speech about never giving up, no matter how difficult the mission, because they are cleaners. Everyone joins in with the same intensity and shouts together. They all calmly sit in the car, ready to start their mission. They arrive at Canvas Town and see a large dome-shaped structure protecting the town from the trash. Rudo asks Tamsi if all cities are built like this one. Tamsi explains that the dome shape protects the city from the trash thrown by the sphere people. Meanwhile, 2 people try to walk through the open doorway, but are stopped by an invisible blockade. They are surprised to see Enjin, and the others walk into the city with ease. Enjin explains to Rudo that they are free to enter and leave the city as long as they do not have ill intentions. As they step inside the city, Rudo becomes amazed by the art covering all the walls and buildings. It is explained that Canvas Town was built to allow people to draw and paint freely. Riyo reveals that the town used to be called the City of Arts, according to Corvus. Rudo asks Enjin if they came here just to look at art. Enjin tells him they are here to meet a giver who has the ability to attach protection to things he draws on. The giver can put his feelings into his drawings and uses this power to stop people with ill intentions from entering the city. Enjin explains that the giver draws on the outside walls and casts a spell to create the invisible barrier. He is impressed by this unique ability and reveals that it has been passed down through generations. Suddenly, someone runs into Enjin and falls to the ground. Enjin tries to apologize, but the girl looks up at him with tears in her eyes and quickly runs away without saying a word. Riyo teases Enjin for making the girl cry. A man steps around the corner and looks surprised to see the cleaners arriving sooner than expected. Enjin recognizes the man as the mayor and tells him they are here to meet the gob. After a pause, the mayor informs them that the gob died this morning. Enjin becomes shocked to see the gob's dead body. The mayor explains that gob died from body pollution. He reveals that gob was not content with limiting his art to safe zones and had drawn some art in contaminated zones. This led to body contamination after gob removed his mask multiple times. Enjin kneels beside the bed, while Rudo feels shocked to learn that a giver died from body pollution. Tamsi advises Rudo not to be upset since it is a common cause of death on the ground. The mayor reveals that they have already decided who will inherit the vital instrument. The mayor explains that heirs are chosen by the previous generation, but he does not know what criteria are used. The chosen one will awaken their giver ability when they inherit the pen and dedicate themselves to being a spellcaster. The mayor introduces the heiress as Remlin, who is recognized by Gob to be the next spellcaster. He acknowledges that inheriting the vital instrument is a great honor, but understands that it is a heavy burden for someone so young. Remlin has tears streaming down her face, and Rudo feels shocked to see her like this. Follow steps in and explains that an object cannot become a vital instrument unless it is cared for over time, but a person with the natural ability to become a giver can gain their powers as soon as they inherit the vital instrument. Rudo looks at his gloves after hearing Follow's explanation. The mayor apologizes, saying it may take longer since Remlin is mourning right now. The mayor begins to tear up as he remembers how much Gob loved drawing. Even though the mayor cannot paint, he wanted to preserve the joy of people enjoying art, and even became the mayor to help others experience that joy. Enjin recalls the times when Gob would visit their headquarters to paint and feels sad knowing he will never see Gob's smirk again. Enjin decides to leave and do some shopping since they will be in town for a while. He tells Remlin to take care of herself and assures her they will be back. Suddenly, Remlin stands up and yells that it is finally over. This startles both Enjin and the mayor. She wipes the tears from her face and declares that she does not want to sit around in gloom anymore. She wants to celebrate and grabs the pen from the mayor. Suddenly, she dashes out the door, leaving everyone stunned by her sudden change in behavior. Meanwhile, Remlin climbs to the top of a roof and reflects on how Gob would not want her to sit crying. She opens the pen and activates its powers. The pen transforms into a brush, and she begins making paint strokes across the ground in a pattern around the spray cans. The cans rattle and shoot into the air, exploding into fireworks. Remlin decides to give Gob the funniest and most joyful farewell ever. Rudo watches in amazement and recalls moments of his time spent with Regto. The entire city joins in the celebration, picking up brushes and cans of paint to create art together. Meanwhile, Remlin draws on Rudo's face, and Rudo becomes furious at her. She bursts into laughter, and Enjin observes the type of person chosen to become the spellcaster has the similar character as the old one. Remlin promises to work hard as the new spellcaster and realizes that her powers do not work on people or things without their permission. Enjin asks if the spellcaster's powers remain the same for all the generations, and the mayor explains that the powers stay consistent throughout generations with slight individual differences. Remlin informs that the power of the vital instrument comes from the collective love of art shared by all the spellcasters. Enjin remains confused by her explanation, and Remlin decides to tattoo on Rudo's back, but Enjin interrupts her. He becomes surprised to see that the vital instrument can transform into any art supply the spellcaster desires. Remlin changes the tattoo gun into a marker and asks to doodle a spell onto Rudo. The cleaners prepares to head out with spells on them to reduce the impact of one big hit. Suddenly, two angry people approach and start yelling at the mayor for letting Remlin inherit the vital instrument. The mayor shouts back saying they do not deserve the vital instrument because all they care about is fame. The cleaners continue their journey out of Canvas Town while expressing their thanks and farewells to Remlin. She shares her wish to visit the cleaners one day and draw at their headquarters. In the car, Rudo asks if they are heading back to the cleaners, and Enjin confirms that they are going to get full face mask for Rudo. He asks Rudo if he wants to do his favorite thing and brings him to do some trash picking. Rudo excitedly goes through the trash, searching for weapons to use as his vital instruments. Suddenly, the TV turns on, and a man appears on the screen wearing gloves that look identical to Rudo's. Meanwhile, Rudo and the others arrive at the headquarters. Semiyu welcomes them and feels bad after hearing about Gob's death. Suddenly, August interrupts and announces that he has finished Rudo's mask. Enjin introduces August and explains that he is the giver who makes gear and equipment for the cleaners. August mentions that he got Rudo's measurements while he was asleep and feels confident that the mask is a perfect fit. Rudo feels shocked to hear this, and Ishia suddenly appears. She starts talking to August, calling him brother, and asks him to stop bothering everyone. Rudo and the other cleaners head into the garage where Enjin asks Rudo to take off his choker. The cleaners begin harming themselves in various ways, and Rudo becomes shocked by what he sees. Rudo hands over his choker and watches as they drip some of their blood into it. Enjin explains that chokers are like telephones, and adding their blood allows them to communicate with each other. Enjin then scares Rudo by asking for some of his blood as well. The cleaners get into a car, and Enjin states that the purpose of this mission is to search for the woman in No Man's Land. He notices that Rudo has brought too much trash with him, and Rudo tries to convince him that the trash is spare in case he needs extra. The group arrives in the desert No Man's Land called Penta. Enjin observes that the sand is actually waste that has been turned into dust. Rudo recalls how August explained the proper way to use his full mask. First, one should put on the half mask and connect the oxygen tank. Then he should cover his entire face with the full face mask. Meanwhile, suddenly a trash beast appears in the distance. Enjin tells Rudo not to lag behind, and Rudo confidently responds that he won't. Meanwhile, Tom records every detail about the trash beast and notes that it has a shape and attack style similar to a scorpion. Riyo begins attacking the trash beast and slashes off a part of it, but the trash beast assumes it was Zanka who cut it. It charges towards Zanka, and Zanka tries to explain that he was not the one who attacked it. He blocks all of its strikes, and the trash beast attempts to attack with its tail. Zanka dodges the tail attack and charges forward with high force to strike the trash beast. The trash beast blocks the attack using its mouth, and suddenly Zanka finds himself surrounded by multiple trash beasts. Enjin rushes to his rescue and attacks the beasts with his Octa Shredder move. He misses a few of the trash beasts and calls out to Rudo to handle the rest. Rudo uses his gloves to turn a keyboard into a vital instrument. Meanwhile, a girl from a far distance senses the cleaners using her keen sense of smell. Rudo types a message on the keyboard and hits enter. The keys fly off at high speeds and take out the remaining trash beasts. The girl smiles as she watches the group of cleaners fighting the trash beast. Rudo notices something unusual in the sand, and Enjin guesses that there is more garbage buried beneath it. He spots Tom walking onto the site and advises her to stay safe until the battle is over. Tom worries she might forget the details if she waits and decides to trust the supporters to protect her while she records. Rudo gets lost in a cloud of sand and senses someone behind him. Suddenly, both Delmon and Tamzi appear. Delmon feels disappointed that he missed seeing Rudo fight. The three of them are startled to see a girl standing nearby. She slowly walks toward them and asks if they are here to see ammo. The scene shifts to Jabber, who informs his boss about the No Man's Land called Penta. Meanwhile, Enjin considers the possibility that the girl might be the woman they are searching for, but Zanka doubts it. Riyo bluntly asks the girl if Amo has seen anyone traveling between the sphere and the ground. Amo responds that she has, and Enjin urges everyone to gather the information they need from her so they can leave quickly. Amo starts coughing from the trash in the air and invites them to her house. Riyo notices Enjin looking concerned and offers to talk to Amo herself, but Enjin decides that all the cleaners should go together and settle the matter peacefully. They arrive at Amo's house, and Rudo notices strange objects scattered around her room. Suddenly, Enjin begins throwing up a liquid and collapses to the ground.